So I want to make sure that we know the skeletal muscles that we're talking about before we start putting muscles on top of them. Yeah? That kind of makes sense. Good. Okay. I love that. Yay. All right. Let's see. So we're going to kind of deal with upper body here right now because that's where we're at right now. And let's just make sure that we've got some of the basics down here really quick. Mr. Blygen, let's start with you. Since you're all full, showing us your pictures and stuff.
Jealous.
Let's see if you're as good at your anatomy as you are at your cooking. All right, sir.
I got my flashcards here.
Good. Sir, what region of the body is this?
The cervical.
Cervical, the one I'm grabbing really tightly and squeezing right now, huh? Oh, no, that's the cervical. You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
What are these bones that are found in the cervical region? Well, they're found in this entire thing. What are these bones that are stacked on top of each other here called?
The spinous process.
Those are the spinous processes, which are things sticking off these bones. What are the bones called?
Oh, so those are the disc. Hold on.
You're close.
The disc.
I actually
and they are called
starts with a V.
Oh man. What a what?
A V. For victory.
V, as in Victor.
For vendetta.
Okay. Can you show me on that little guy?
For vindication. What?
That.
So you were very clever, by the way. You gave a very hard answer. You said this is called the spinous process, and it is. By the way, it's called the spinous process. But it is the spinous process of this bone. And this bone and this bone, they all have a name. They're called something with a V.
Vertebrae.
Yeah! Bam! Okay, so how many cervical vertebrae do you have?
So, breakfast is 7.
Breakfast is 7. Okay, we'll take it.
Breakfast is at 7.
Good. What's this first one up here called?
That one is called C1.
It is C1. Is there another name for it?
The occipital or the nuca or something.
Yeah. All right, well,
strange.
There are some of these things are up here, but
I don't know yet.
All right, and I may not have gone over this very much yet, so you're doing just fine. So we got 7 cervical vertebrae, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because breakfast is at 7. You strange man. Okay, but it's working for you. I like it. All right, Miss McDowell, do you know what C1 is called?
The occiput?
No. Occiput's up here. It's the bump outer. Did I tell you guys this yet? I feel like I haven't, actually. I just thought I might have mentioned it in passing, huh? Okay. Well, I apologize to you, Mrs. McDowell. And Mr. Blygen, I apologize to you, sir. Let me back up. So, by the way, for one thing, everybody, Mr. Blygen is completely right. You can go your whole life knowing that this is C1, and that's all you know, and that's fine. But some of these things have little nicknames, too, that are kind of important. Have you guys ever seen a picture of the guy holding up the world?
Yeah, his name is Axis or something, right? No.
Atlas.
It's an Atlas, yeah.
Atlas, he's a Titan, I think. But anyway, Greek mythology, Atlas. And so C1 actually directly hooks to your head, to the occiput, and so it's called C1 or Atlas. Yeah, and I apologize, by the way. I thought I had mentioned that, and I didn't.
I think you did very vaguely.
No, I don't think it counts.
Something that, no, I do remember you saying something like that.
Yeah. But you were probably too busy cooking amazing food to pay attention, huh? I'm just teasing, sir. All right, so that's Atlas. He's holding the world on his shoulders. That's really where we get, that's why we call an Atlas, by the way. Is because of this Titan guy from Greek mythology. Underneath it is C2. So the joint between C1 and my occiput allows me to do this. It really does. It allows me to do flexion extension. Don't get me wrong, my whole neck can do some flexion extension, but this is actually really happening at C1 in my head. C1 and C2, C2's got this little bone sticking up, and C1 actually rotates around it. And so C2 is called the axis. And C2 really lets me do this. Yes, it does. Really lets me do this. C1 and my head, C2 and C1. Lets me do that. So atlas holding the world up my head, axis underneath that one, C2 letting me rotate my head. Cool? Let me give you one last one too, C7. C7 tends to be, not always by the way, but it tends to be the vertebrae with the spinous process that sticks out most back here. So if you reach back to your neck here and you feel a bone sticking out, you're probably touching the spinous process of C7. Now this isn't 100% true. On some people it's T1 that sticks out a little bit more. That's totally normal. But usually it's C7. And so they call C7 Vertebra Prominence, meaning the most prominent vertebra. Vertebra Prominence, meaning the most prominent vertebra. So you've got C1 atlas, C2 axis, and C7 vertebra prominence. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, Miss Walker T.
Yes.
What region of the body is this that I'm grabbing?
Cervical?
Yes. How many cervical vertebrae are there?
7.
Yes. What's this top one called?
C1 or atlas?
Thank you. What's the next one called?
C2?
Yes, or
Axle?
axis?
Axis.
Yeah, but axle's pretty close. We'll take it. What's the seventh vertebrae here called?
The prominent vertebrae?
Yeah, vertebra prominence, C7. Cool. Hey, just quick fact check. If I go one more inferior, one more down, what's this vertebrae called? Below C7.
T1.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. It's been a pleasure. Miss Lobitz, what is this region of the body?
The thoracic.
It is the thoracic region. How many thoracic vertebrae are there?
12.
There are 12, and there happens to be 12 ribs. That's what makes it thoracic. There's a rib associated with every single vertebrae. Cool. And by the way, this is still the thoracic region here in front. Anything with a rib associated with the thoracic region. 12 thoracic vertebrae. What's the first thoracic vertebrae called?
T1.
Yes. What's the last thoracic vertebrae called?
T12.
Okay, just for checking ourselves, what's the vertebrae underneath T12?
L1.
That is correct. That is correct. Okay. I think that's good, ma'am. Thank you. Miss Walker Y. Miss Walker Y, I don't know if I've discussed this either. So, I just did this to Mr. Blige where I asked him questions I've never talked about before. So if I do it to you, I apologize. We'll fix it, okay? But, do you know what these things are? These bones that are making up this rib cage called? I just kind of said it. Ribs. How many ribs do you have? 12. 12 on each side, yes. Do you know what the first 7 ribs are called as a group? They're ribs 1 through 7, by the way. We really do call them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But you know what they're called as a group?
Are they part of the thoracic?
They're part of the thoracic. All the ribs are part of the thoracic. But we actually give names to the first 7 ribs as a group, the next 3 as a group, and these last 2 down here as a group. I am guessing that I didn't cover this, so let's discuss this together. Your first 7 ribs, everybody, attach directly into your sternum. Do you see that? They have a little bit of cartilage that takes them right into my sternum. I'm coming along. Here's the 3rd rib, right in the sternum. Here's the 4th rib, right in the sternum. Here's the 5th rib, right in the sternum. Here's the 6th rib, right in the well, let me see if I lost count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here's the 7th rib. Goes directly into the sternum on its own cartilage. So they call these first 7 ribs true ribs. T-R-U-E, true ribs. True ribs. then 8 does not go straight in the sternum. 8 goes into the cartilage of 7 and then into the sternum. 9 goes into the cartilage of 7 and into the sternum. 10 goes into the cartilage of 7 and into the sternum. So they call these false ribs. 7 true, 3 false. And these last 2 down here, they don't go anywhere. They do not attach to the sternum. They're way back here. They don't wrap around and attach to the sternum. They're called floating ribs. 7 true, 3 false, 2 floating. Sorry, Miss Walker. She's like, no, you're saying it's okay, but inside you're like, you idiot. Come on, give me a real question. Okay, Miss Hawks, let's review. What are the first 7 ribs called?
The true ribs.
Yes, what are the next 3 called? 8, 9, and 10.
False ribs.
Yeah, what's 11 and 12 called?
Floating ribs.
Floating ribs, thank you. I don't know why Miss Walker didn't get that. Okay. All right. Okay, Miss Estes. Hi. Miss Estes. What's this collarbone called?
That is the clavicle.
Yeah. What's the joint between the sternum and the clavicle called?
The sternoclavicular.
Yes,
joint.
sternoclavicular. Yeah, that's exactly right. Sternoclavicular joint. Which is the one joint attachment that attaches the entire shoulder girdle complex onto the body?
That is the glenohumeral joint.
Well, that's the joint that attaches here. You're overthinking. What's the one joint that hooks my entire shoulder girdle onto my body?
Okay, that is the onto the body. Is that where the chromium process?
How about this joint right here that you just said, by the way?
Oh, the same thing? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Sternoclavicular? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I apologize, by the way. That's something everybody I do a lot. Like, I'll ask you 3 questions with the same answer because I'm trying to make a point. It didn't go off very well this time. So far, this has not gone really well. So just bear with me. I do improve. I really do. I'm just, it's like a Monday right now. So sternoclavicular joint, thank you. You did know the name of the joint. We're golden. Don't worry. So that's what attaches this whole thing on here. Okay, so what's this process here called?
A chromium process.
So what's this joint here between the clavicle and the acromion process called?
That is the acromioclavicular.
Yeah, that's good.
AC.
Acromioclavicular joint. AC, I love it. And you already told us about the glenohumeral joint. Thank you. This ball and socket. Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Miss Carodi. Hi.
Right.
What bone is this? What bone is this?
You got the bone right there.
Scapula.
Scapula. That's exactly right. Okay. Miss Carodi, this is the scapula. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Miss Carodi, do you know what this part is called? That is exactly right. She's saying the spine of the scapula. Really good job. Really good job. The spine of the scapula turns into this part. Do you know what this part's called? The spine of the scapula turns into this process. Yes, say it. Yeah, acromial. Yeah, you don't have to get it perfect. You just have to get close enough and we'll say it together. So, acromial or acromion process. Can you say it one time, ma'am?
Acromial.
We'll take it. Acromial process. Good. Thank you. You're done, Miss Crody. That was amazing. Yeah, I know you don't want me to forget her, do you? She's throwing you under the bus, Miss Jung. So I have some questions. Miss Jung, what's this called again? Okay, spine of the scapula. Good. What's this part called above the spine of the scapula? Above the spine of the scapula. What's this called? Supraspinatus Fossa. But I love that I heard supra. That's actually what I was looking for. What's this part underneath the spine called? Yeah. Yeah, Infraspinatus Fossa. Thank you very much, you two. Good job. Moving right along. Cool, cool, cool. Mr. Placencia. Boom. Sir, what's this edge here called on the scapula? It's a border. What's this border called on the scapula? There's a border here, and there's a border here, but I want to know about this border. Hold on, you're kind of quiet, sir. Why are you so quiet? Not really. Is it just me? No. Other people can't hear you well either, sir. And we want to...
the medial border.
Oh, he did?
Yes, he did.
Oh, good. Yes, medial border, sir. Cool. All right, sir. So what's this border then? I can hear your words if I'm listening really carefully. Lateral border. Okay. We'll leave it at that, sir. Thank you very much. Medial border. That's the secret. You just whisper, and then I move on. No, I know you're not doing that. All right. So medial lateral border. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Okay. Miss Sarno. What is this angle down here? It's got the name angle in it. What's this angle down here? There's an angle up here and an angle down here. What's this angle down here called? Yeah, so let's say it together because you're right. You're dead on right. Inferior angle. Yeah, that was a superior answer. This is the one up top. This is the superior angle. So say superior angle. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Good stuff. Okay, so I think we've got kind of our bones and things like that together. So, hey, somebody stole my humerus. Not mine personally, mine's still attached thanks to my rotator cuff muscles, which by the way, help keep your shoulder attached. But I have to run to the room next door to get a humerus. The body is this that I'm grabbing right here.
Is cervical?
It is, sir. How many cervical vertebrae are there?
7.
7. What is the first vertebrae called here? 2 names for it.
Atlas.
Atlas?
Atlas and C1.
Yes, sir. What's the next one called?
Axis.
Yeah!
C2.
Yeah! And what's the 7th one called?
C7. Vertebral prominence?
Yeah, vertebra prominence. Hold on 1 second, sir. Miss Walker, why? You have your hand up, madam.
So which one is the atlas and which one's the axis?
Yeah.
Or are you saying the same thing?
No, I'm not. I'm not. And it is hard to understand. And by the way, we're going to have an entire section on the vertebra where we talk about this stuff again, but I just think it's so helpful to hear it now, and we're kind of in that area. But the first vertebra, C1, is called atlas. A-T-L-A-S. Atlas. A good teacher would have written them down for you so that you did not have this confusion. C1 is also called, let's keep it all lowercase or all okay, here, let's see. Atlas. C2 is called axis, like axis radius. And C7 is called vertebra prominence. I don't know about that last part. Prominence. Thank you for asking. And good job remembering, Mr. Tate. Thank you, sir. Miss Vincent, Hey, Miss Vincent. Miss Vincent, what bone is this here? Collarbone? What?
Clavicle.
Yes. What's this joint here between the clavicle and the sternum?
The clavicle says. I can't remember.
Well, take a guess. Make up something.
Cheat.
You could cheat, but you could also make up some pretty easy stuff if you just put sternum and clavicle in a sentence together.
Sternoclavicular. So.
Yeah, whatever you said, sternoclavicular something. Yeah, sternoclavicular joint. And by the way, if you said clavicular sternal joint, most doctors wouldn't even blink an eye. They'd be like, okay, it's the difference between 89th Avenue and Bell and 89th Avenue. They don't. There's a certain way we're used to hearing it. We're used to hearing it sternoclavicular, but they would get it. So that's awesome. What is this joint here between the clavicle and the scapula called? But it's not scapula, it's this process here. Do you know what this process is?
The acromion?
Yes. So what's the joint between the acromion process and the clavicle called?
Those two words put together?
Yeah, why don't you try that?
Acromion clavicular
Joint?
joint.
Yeah. By the way, I'm not making fun of you. I'm making fun of how like simple it is. Like it's very like
No.
you're right. It's very Harry Potter. Like acromio. Yeah, let's go with that. Clavicular. You know, and you just throw them together. So yeah, very cool. Acromioclavicular joint. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's leave it at that. Thank you, Miss Suriel.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
What is this feature on the scapula called?
That's the spine of the scapula.
It is the spine of the scapula. So what's the place on top of the spine of the scapula?
The Supraspinatus Fossa.
We'll take it. Supraspinatus Fossa, super whatever fossa. That's awesome. She literally just said the above the spine of the scapula fossa, right? Supra, above, spinous, fossa, indentation. Supraspinatus fossa. Brilliant. Thank you, ma'am. What's this thing underneath it called, Miss Suriel?
Oh my God, that is like very hard for me.
Well, you just got supra. What's the word for below? Like supra is like superior. Below is kind of inferior.
Infraspinatus something.
Yeah, infraspinatus fossa. Infraspinatus fossa. We're about to learn about a muscle that sounds very similar to that coming on here. Very cool. Cool. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mr. Riedel. I hope I said it right this time. Mr. Riedel, sir? There?
Yes.
Sir, do you know what the fossa is called that's underneath the scapula?
The subscapular fossa.
Bam. Funny, people usually get that one wrong. That was really good. Thank you, sir. Very, very helpful. And that's me said something. And Miss Mares, what's this angle down here called?
Is that the inferior angle?
All day long. Thank you, ma'am. What's this angle called?
Would that be superior?
All day long. Thank you, ma'am. Good. I love it. Cool, cool, cool. And Miss Munoz, what's this border here called? But let me get it on a skeleton so you can see. What's this border here, Miss Munoz? Miss Munoz? Oh, yeah, good, you're there.
Here I am.
Okay, you scared me. Miss Munoz,
Oh,
what's this?
It's whatever.
Yeah.
That's the medial border.
So what's this border?
Lateral.
Okay. I think we're ready to talk about the rotator cuff muscles, everybody. Pretty excited. Thank you, madam. Okay. All right. So, does anybody remember what to say when I say infraspinatus? And this I know I've told you. Mr. Tate, you are nodding affirmatively? Yeah. What do you say when I say
It was Teres Minor.
Yeah, that's exactly right, sir. When I say infraspinatus, which we're about to find out is a tiny muscle, you say Teres Minor, which is a tiny muscle. Mr. Tate, do you remember what to say when I say latissimus dorsi?
Teres Major. Teres Major.
Yeah, Teres Major, which is a large muscle, and we go to Teres Major. Thank you, sir. Well done. Mr. Brown, yes, sir.
Just to clarify, when you said infraspinatus and the Teres Minor, it's because they go hand in hand, correct?
Yeah, you're right. That was going to be my next question, sir. You're absolutely right. And I don't mean that like I didn't want you to say it. I'm glad you're thinking that way. The question is, why do I want you to do this? Why am I having to do this ridiculous thing that every time I say infraspinatus, you say Teres Minor, or anytime I say Teres Minor, you say infraspinatus? It's because we're about to find out they're located in almost the exact same spot, really, from a massage therapist point of view, and they do the same thing. And so Teres Minor and infraspinatus go together. They insert in the same location almost, they have the same action, and they're both rotator cuff muscles. That's three things they have in common. Latissimus dorsi and Teres Major go together because they have the same actions and some similar locations and things like that. So they go together. We don't even think they can operate separately. And what's strange is that Teres Major and Minor don't go together. They're found close to each other on the body, so they've been named together, but they do very different things. Very simply put, by the way, very simply put, Teres Minor goes on the outside of the humerus, and Teres Major goes on the inside, which means they do very different things. One pulls a lateral rotation, one pulls a medial rotation. Very, very different things. But anyway, that's why I put them together, Mr. Brown, yes, because they share actions and locations. Yeah, it's to make your life easier. So, let's explore that, everybody. Yeah? Okay. There are 4 rotator cuff muscles, correct? 4 rotator cuff muscles. Miss Allure, what are the names of the 4 rotator cuff muscles?
They are Teres Minor, Subscapularis,
Infraspinatus.
And
Spinatus. So, Miss Allure, that was absolutely perfect. Like you said them correctly and everything like that. But for some reason, Tapscott doesn't like the order you gave them in. I can't imagine why. But are there 2 that you should have named together? I don't care, like, you know what I mean? But they should always be said together. Could we say it again and put those 2 together?
Teres Minor and is it sub?
Oh, hold on. I'm going to come right back to you, Miss Allure. All right?
Okay.
Hold on. Mr. Tate, anytime I say Teres Minor, you say... Now he's going to think. So cute. He knew, too. Hold on. We'll get there. Anytime I say infraspinatus, you say... You got this.
It's
What?
I think it was something else.
I missed it.
No, I think he can't remember either.
Oh,
No? All right, let me ask you this, sir. Anytime I say Teres Minor, you say...
Sorry, my mind wandered off somewhere else.
It's completely okay. I just find it funny because you knew it, and then it disappeared. That's how life is. All right, so anytime I say Teres, and don't feel bad, sir, you had it right the first time. You had it right the hardest time. Anytime I say Teres Minor, you guys say infraspinatus. Anytime I say infraspinatus, you say Teres Minor. They just go together. Cool? So, Miss Allure, I was making a big deal about something that's not that big a deal. It's supposed to be funny, not that funny anymore. But my point is, when you list those muscles, I don't care like what order they go in, but if you're going to say Teres Minor, will you please say infraspinatus right after it? Or if you say infraspinatus, say Teres Minor right after it, because I want to group them in people's heads. Now, knowing that, will you tell me all 4 rotator cuff muscles?
yes.
Teres Minor, Infraspinatus, Subscapularis, and Supraspinatus.
Yeah, that was perfect, and thank you for your patience. That was awesome. Okay. All right. These are called rotator cuff muscles because they essentially rotate your shoulder in its cuff. And one does not, though. However, one of these muscles does not do a rotation at all. Does anybody know which rotator cuff muscle does not rotate anything? Miss McDowell, what muscle might that be?
Is it the subscapularis?
No.
Okay.
Subscapularis performs a medial rotation. We're about to see. Oh. All right. I thought, Miss Barres, I thought I saw your mic go on for a second. That's why I was like, but no.
Yeah, it was me. Would it be I'm not quite sure, but I'm gonna guess the Teres Minor? Or no?
No, actually, so it's not the Teres Minor. And since we know it's not the Teres Minor, we also therefore know it's not the Infraspinatus because they go together, right? Mr. Rydell, sorry, it's Riedel for 1 second, but it wasn't even you that I saw. It was Mr. Placencia I saw. Get ready to say something. What were you going to say, sir? What? Gosh. Okay. One last time. I just turned up my volume all the way. Just say it one more time. Supraspinatus. He's like, I'd given up talking to you. You are correct, though, sir. Supraspinatus. All right. Let's talk about these. Let's tape them off. See if we can make a little sense of them. Okay. So, for those, by the way, I got some really good answers on the homework for about why we have these muscles. I was just looking that they stabilize the shoulder joint and help keep the shoulder in its socket. But I got some more creative answers than that. And so I appreciate that. But just on a basic level, what type of socket is this? This is your glenohumeral joint. This is the glenoid fossa or cavity. This is your humerus. This is called your glenohumeral joint. This is your shoulder joint. Boom. Right? What type of joint is this? It's not a hinge joint. It's a certain type of joint. And I saw Miss Estes mouth it, but she's not going to say it out.
It's a ball and socket?
It's a ball and socket joint. Now, where's another example on your body where you can find a ball and socket joint, Miss Estes, besides the shoulder?
At your hip.
Yeah. Which one is a better example, your hip or your shoulder?
The hip is a better example.
Good memory. Yeah, the hip is better because there's actually a socket there. You guys, just let me show you. Oh, sorry. I can't do this on the skeleton with the hip because there's actually a socket. It actually goes inside something like this. And you might be able to pop it out this way, but it's not going to move in there. You don't have a shoulder ball and socket. You've got a ball and a teaspoon. It should be called a ball and teaspoon joint. Anyway, and people do dislocate their shoulders, right? If you've watched Die Hard, you know that people dislocate their shoulders. Sometimes on purpose. Sorry. Okay. So, one of the main things the rotator cuff muscles do is to create a socket, really, for your shoulder to help keep it in place. So when you have, sorry, something tickled my throat. When you have shoulder weakness, you'd think they tell you to build up your deltoids and things like that, but one of the first things that the physical therapist has you do is rotator cuff muscles exercises, because they want to strengthen up all the things that kind of hold your shoulder in socket. And we're about to see that here in a second. So let's build a supraspinatus muscle. These muscles are kind of easy to, I shouldn't say easy, because then if you do, but anyway, these muscles have some tricks to remembering them. 3 of the muscles insert into the greater tubercle of the humerus, which is right here on the lateral side of your arm here, and 1 inserts into the lesser tubercle, which is up front. Most of them live in the fossas by their name. So this top fossa above the spine of the scapula, Supraspinatus Fossa, the muscle that goes in there is your supraspinatus. Looks like that. And it reaches over the top of your humerus and grabs on the greater tubercle here. Kind of cool. Like that. It's almost wanting to hold itself in already. So, so this is the supraspinatus muscle. You will hear people talk about it a lot, at least people that are good at their anatomy and good at massage and stuff like that. And you'll hear sports therapists talk about it a lot. It comes up in a lot of shoulder injury problems. So let's discuss this muscle. One thing is, we're having problems with it, but what action do you suppose it would do? Now you actually have to imagine the tape shortening to imagine what kind of action this muscle might do. But if I pull the tape, thank you, Miss Lobitz, that's exactly right. What's that action called, Miss Lobitz?
Abduction.
Abduction. Yeah. Whew. Sorry. I was getting all cocky there because I was actually holding. Yeah, so literally this muscle, when it shortens, pulls your arm out like that. I was actually doing it before it let go here. If I pull on this tape here, do you see what happens to the shoulder? It comes out. That is an abduction of your shoulder. Miss Lobitz, since you're kind of on fire right now with the whole abduction thing, not to put you on the spot, is there another muscle that we've learned about whose middle fibers also aid in an abduction? I'm making that face because these are hard questions.
Is it the deltoid?
It is. It's the middle fibers of the deltoid. It's actually the whole deltoid, so saying deltoid was actually the correct answer. So the deltoid is actually on top of this, and it too does the same thing. So the supraspinatus actually helps initiate the movement. It's a long story, which I'm going to try to tell you. And then the deltoid helps take over and pull this thing up, because the deltoid reaches way down here and helps pull this up too. So the supraspinatus and at least the middle delt work together quite a bit. They're buddies. Yeah, they get along well. It's hard to imagine, but because the deltoid comes around this 90-degree angle here, when it pulls, it doesn't really go anywhere. I need to get this arm out a little bit for it to have something to pull onto. Otherwise, it's kind of just pulling the arm straight up, and the supraspinatus helps get it out so the deltoid can grab on and start pulling on it. It's very helpful in initiating the movement. Super important. All right, there are problems with supraspinatuses. One of the big problems with them is they run underneath the acromion process. And that means that they can pinch themselves. So if they get like an overuse injury, things like that, this thing, when it comes up, you'll get some clicking and some pain, and it'll actually irritate itself and pinch itself and create swelling and irritation here. And a very common sign for this is you get clients that come in and they do interesting things with their bodies. If they go to reach for something, they go reach for it like this. Grab something off the table like this. What am I doing there? I'm using my scapulothoracic joint to get my arm up because my shoulder joint, my glenohumeral joint hurts. I don't want to do this. This would be the normal thing to grab something, but I don't do that. I use my scapulothoracic joint to get my arm up because it's hurting when I bring my glenohumeral joint up. Because when I kick my arm out to the side like that, I pinch this muscle right underneath this acromion process. Yeah? Super common. Hold on, I have to get new tape because I ruined this muscle. Okay. All right. So far we've got the supraspinatus muscle running under the acromion process, hooking over to this beautiful guy here. It'll actually create an abduction. Yeah? This is the backside of the scapula. This is what you guys are used to rubbing. Right? Because the front side of the scapula you basically never see because it's glued to the back. This is the backside of the scapula. What's the muscle that's found underneath the spine of the scapula?
Infraspinatus.
Infraspinatus muscle. Thank you, ma'am. Infraspinatus muscle. Oh, sorry, I'm just putting it on here real fast. Good. Oh. Okay. Infraspinatus muscle. So I've got supraspinatus here. Infraspinatus, and I even put in the Teres Minor. Can you tell the difference between the infraspinatus and Teres Minor? Maybe in a picture book you can't, but you can't tell them when you're rubbing somebody, I'll tell you. This back here all feels like one muscle underneath the spine of the scapula. And they both go to the greater tubercle, but around the outside to do it. So when they pull from and back, when they pull, what kind of rotation do they create? If they're under here and they pull, what kind of...
Lateral?
Yes, lateral. Very good. Lateral rotation. So, was that, by the way, for the, Miss Estes, was that for the infraspinatus or the Teres Minor that you were saying lateral rotation?
Both, right?
Yeah, I was trying to trick you. Yes, both. Because anything you can say about the Teres Minor is the same stuff you can say about the infraspinatus. They feel the same. Don't get me wrong, by the way, if you're some surgeon, I know they're going to be like, no, it's way over here. I got that. From a rubbing point of view, and from an action point of view, and from a shoulder problem point of view, these muscles are the same to me. Now, don't get me wrong, the Teres Minor actually hooks to the side of the scapula, kind of under here, but they run together in a way that you can't tell them apart. So this is infraspinatus and Teres Minor. So we got supraspinatus, infraspinatus, Teres Minor. By the way, Teres Major would be down here. And it wouldn't go to the back, it actually goes to the front. That's a whole other story. So if I go underneath here, what's this fossa called?
The Subscapular Fossa?
Yeah, and that is the one, the Subscapularis, that hooks to the lesser tubercle. So let's give you an idea of what that looks like. These are obviously not exact because I'm trying to, but it would fill in this underside here. And it goes there. Now you got to understand the subscapular fossa is actually the front of the scapula. If you saw it on a person, this is actually what's back here. So when this subscapularis muscle pulls, what kind of rotation do we get then? When it pulls from the front, what kind of rotation we get then, Miss McDowell?
Is that a medial rotation?
It is, all day long, medial rotation. Because medial is actually kind of pulling them in front, right? You've got to be in front to pull in front. So here's the beauty. We've got these four muscles, and look what they're doing. These crappy pieces of tape are actually holding the shoulder joint together. That's what they do. They keep your shoulder together and give it integrity. They're not big, powerful muscles. You know, you're not pumping iron with them. The deltoids are doing that. The lats are doing that. The pecs are doing that. But they're keeping your shoulder together while you do that, which is probably more important. So they're super important. And when we have problems in here, we tend to like to work on them, especially, like I said, this supraspinatus one that can get stuck underneath there and actually get swollen and get kind of irritated there. But that's what they do. Those are the four muscles. So you guys are used to working on them like this. This is somebody's back. And you're used to rubbing the infraspinatus and Teres Minor, and the supraspinatus you can rub too. But by the way, what muscle is on top of the supraspinatus, making it a little bit hard to find?
The trapezius is in the way.
Yeah. So actually, when we're massaging people's trapezius, we'll often kind of push down their trapezius like this, right? But I will often cut in here with my fingers and actually find the supraspinatus fossa. You can all do this. This isn't some advanced, amazing thing. I wish I could tell you it was, but it's not. I come down here and I actually plunge in, and you'll feel this little notch in the top of people's shoulders. That's you hitting their supraspinatus muscle, and you will do it. And then I'll sometimes scoop under and I'll kind of feel the spine of their scapula, and I'll rub here. Not as hard, by the way. This area is a little sensitive. But I rub directly on the lower part of the scapula, the Infraspinatus Fossa, and I'm hitting the Infraspinatus and Teres Minor. If you want to get the Subscapularis, it's trickier, believe it or not. You actually have to attack it from the front. And I usually put a sheet over my hand because for whatever reason it makes me less ticklish. Because I'm pressing back basically into their axillary region to try to hit the back of their scapula. This is trickier. It can totally be done. It's just trickier. Yeah. So, who wants a bonus question? Oh yeah, go ahead. What was that? Mr. Tate, go for it. Please.
Yeah, you said you put a sheet for your hand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you,
I do, like, I know it sounds, this is something somebody showed me like a year ago. I didn't even know this after 26 years. I've been working this thing all the time. So when people had shoulder problems, I'd go in here and work this. And they said, hey, I've got a trick for making that easier to do. And they said, you put a sheet over your hand and then you press into this area. And I was like, honestly, like, I'll be very honest with you. Inside my head, I was like, that's stupid. But I didn't tell them that, right? Well, then we did it, and guess what? It wasn't stupid. I was. Yeah, because it works for some weird reason. It takes away the pokiness and invasiveness that you feel under your armpit, and you get, it just gives you the right thing. And I was able to kind of plunge in there and work that area. All we did was just put our hand underneath the sheet. I mean, nothing fancy. I mean, I'm just talking about just put my hand under a sheet to then press in here. Not because it's gross, not anything. Just because, and by the way, we had them laying on their back, supine on their spine, to press down into the back of their scapula. But it just helped them. It helped the client with their ticklishness. It made it a lot easier to get in there. We got a lot more work done. I was shocked. It was like a really good suggestion. It was just so innocuous that I was like, 26 years and you put a sheet over your hand, this is what you figured out? But they were right. They were brilliant. Yeah. That happens to be a lot, by the way. Right? Yeah. Let's just forget about this moment. Okay. So, yeah, the power of the sheet. Okay. Oh, I love it when I see people touching the muscles I'm talking about. Thank you, Miss Jong. Thank you. Because you're touching the stuff you're supposed to. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That's right. Okay. So, those are your 4 rotator cuff muscles. They can be accessed, all of them. There is essentially a trapezius over them here for the supraspinatus, a deltoid over part of them down here, but really not a lot of stuff down here. You can pretty much directly access the Infraspinatus and Teres Minor. And then the Subscapularis doesn't really have anything over it either. The problem is it's back in the axillary region. And so you have to kind of go in there and feel for the back of the scapula and press down into the back of the scapula. I'm sorry, it's not the back of the scapula. To us it is. It's the front of the scapula, right? It's really the anterior portion. The Subscapularis is actually the anterior scapula. The subscapular fossa is really the anterior scapula. But they call it the underneath part because to us in the back it is underneath. We lift this up, but it's really the front part. Cool? All right. Questions so far? Questions so far? Where did I see? Yes? Oh yeah. Sorry, Miss McDowell. I'm looking right at you, but I couldn't see your hand. What's your question?
So, with the infraspinatus and the teres minor, is there any, for us, like noticeable difference because they have the same actions and similar origins and insertions? There's just nothing significant to our limbs?
No. So I'll answer the question more fully, but the quick answer is no, there's not. So the longer answer is this. Let's do it on a skeleton. The longer answer is the teres minor actually attaches to the lateral border, the upper 2/3 lateral border, I believe. You might want to check your books, but like this, right? And it attaches to the lateral border of the scapula. The infraspinatus goes under this infraspinatus fossa and does that too. So now, don't get me wrong. If you and I were in some massage therapist competition and somebody said we've got to find the difference between the teres minor and the teres and the infraspinatus, sorry, teres minor and infraspinatus, I would go up the lateral border of their scapula until I hit a muscle in the upper 2/3 hanging off the side, and I'd be like, this is the teres minor. And then I'd pop over here and say this is the infraspinatus. But from a rubbing point of view, they're all together. And they're doing the same thing and they're headed the same place. So I don't need to really separate them. Like, I'm not going to get much more detailed than this. There's never a time that I'm like, don't touch the infraspinatus. Make sure you only touch the teres minor, right? It just doesn't come up. So we don't really, this is like a helpful massage hint kind of thing. But they look the same. Like they really do from pictures and on a body. Yes, if you and I get in there with a scalpel, we can start to separate them. We can. But we don't do that, right? And because they do the same action, if you have a problem, if the person's having problems with lateral rotations, I would look at both these muscles. I wouldn't try to separate them out. I don't even care if one's the problem, the other one's not. I'm going to work on both of them. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Cool. So that's those, right? Let's put our supraspinatus in here. That's on top. And let's put our subscapularis under here. That one's tough because they wire down the skeleton, so it's very hard for me to get anything in there. But that's kind of what they do. There. The subscapularis is much bigger, by the way. It pretty much covers the whole subscapular region. But that's kind of this stuff. And then we all decided that one of the issues in getting to this was the trapezius. Right? Right? What are the origins of the trapezius? Actually, I'm sorry, I lied. What are the insertions of the trapezius? Over here, where does it insert Miss Routson? She's like, I got food in my mouth, and that's the one question I do not know the answer to. Yes. Today's your lucky day. I'll give you a clue. Let's start over here. What bone is this?
It looks like it's the clavicle.
Yes. And let's look at the last third of it out here. What should we call that? It doesn't have a special name. You just got to kind of talk about it.
Is it the lateral 1/3 of the
Yeah.
clavicle?
Yeah. Okay. Then we go over to this process that's out here on the side. There's like shoulder pad. What's this process called?
Roman process?
Yep. And then what's this bumpy thing sticking out of the back of the scapula?
I can't see what's pointing at.
Well, hold on. Right now I'm taping up everything wrong. But
I turned it. Will you point at it one more time?
this.
On the spine of the scapula?
Yeah. So guess what? That is kind of what that inserts into. So I'm doing this to help you all kind of see what might cover up these muscles. Your supraspinatus is very covered, right? The trapezius also covers a little bit of this lower area, but we can move it around to kind of get in here, right? And in a second, hey, Miss Routson, you actually did very good on that. Will you tell me the origins of the deltoid?
Oh, I don't have my book out.
Yeah, you don't need your book. You need to think, why would Mr. Tapscott ask me that specific question after I just told him the insertions of the trapezius?
It's the same, I forgot.
Oh, and what are those?
The lateral 1/3 of the clavicle, and this by the scapula, and the acromion process.
Yeah, lateral 1/3 of the clavicle, acromion process, spinal scapula. All right.
These are the tuber thing.
Good. So everybody, can you see the green anymore? Not really. There's some of it sneaking out under here. Your infraspinatus usually sticks out. You can usually just poke right through the back and hit it directly. And the Teres Minor kind of stuff like that. But the deltoid actually covers up some of the stuff coming through over on the shoulder where it attaches. And the trapezius is definitely covering up the supraspinatus. So, Mr. Tapscott has been teaching you names and locations of things and actions, right? He seems to think it's extremely important to being a massage therapist. However, he has yet to approve that yet. So let's do some practical application of the knowledge we have so far. What position, since this guy's blocking me, what position could I put the scapula in, or the scapulothoracic joint, to make the trapezius looser so I can get to the supraspinatus muscle? How do I make the trapezius looser besides massaging it? I mean, I understand that answer in massage class. Anybody? I've never asked this question before. This is a hard question, especially where we're at right now. I don't usually ask this question, by the way, until you're way down the road. Mr. Blygen, please, sir.
Can you ask the question again?
I sure can, sir. I'm asking, since the trapezius is kind of getting in my way of going into the supraspinatus, don't get me wrong, I can just press really hard. We will hit the supraspinatus. But is there a position, the trapezius moves the scapula. Is there a position I can put the scapula in that will get the trapezius looser, like release tension from it, so I can more easily push through it and get to the muscle that I want to get to? And in this case, it's not the trapezius. I want to get to the supraspinatus muscle. This person has a supraspinatus problem. I'm an advanced massage therapist. I don't waste my time just rubbing shoulders like other therapists. I want to get to the supraspinatus, but the trapezius is in my way. What do I do to the scapula to make the trapezius have slack in it?
So you would downwardly rotate the scapula, or yeah, because then to shorten the trapezius, that would, I don't know.
I love the general type of thought you're doing, but I think it's a little switched.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the general type of thought you were doing.
So I'm thinking, like, if the client is in the prone position and we're trying to get to the supraspinatus, you were saying we're trying to do something to the scapula to get the trapezius to shorten so we can get access to the supraspinatus. So I feel like we would make their arm go in front of the table, in front of them, like we'll move their arm there to get access to that.
Yeah, that's, by the way, sir, I don't mean to dismiss that. Like, yeah, that's actually very good massage therapist thinking. But I'm talking about, like, you guys need to be thinking that kind of stuff. We're moving the arm around to kind of get better positioning. But I'm actually talking about doing something to relieve, to create slack in the trapezius, the upper trapezius specifically, right? Because that's what's over my supraspinatus muscle. Yes, who's that? Yes, Miss Walker T.
And your question was, what can we do to the scapula, right?
Yeah, and the reason, that was a giveaway right there in the sense that, like, the trapezius doesn't move the shoulder joint, it moves the scapulothoracic joint. It doesn't actually move your arm, it moves this guy.
Oh, I know.
So, no, you're doing great, sir. Sir. As much as I would like to give you a hard time, I can't. You're doing great. So, Miss Walker, what do you have?
I think we would elevate the scapula, but also upward rotate it.
Yeah. I see a lot of nods coming too. She's 100% right. And those of you that are nodding are 100% right. Now, if I ask the client to do that, that would not help because the client would contract to do that. But if I do it for them, this will be loose. All right? And so I know that some of you get that just plain as day and others don't, and that's fine, but I want to draw it on the board really quick so that we really get it. Okay? Because it's that important a point because it, by the way, applies to all sorts of areas in the body. Okay? So, one of the reasons that we learn kinesiology is for this reason. There are many, many others, but, oh my gosh, I almost wrote on the board with a real marker. Okay. My boss frowns on that. Okay. So, here's a head. Here's little cervical vertebrae. Here's scapulas. Right? Here's more stuff. Okay. So, I need also something that gives me a distance. Sorry, everybody. Let's use this. Yeah, all right. We're going to pick a really convenient point. We're going to pick here. There. There. I wanted something that was linked to the book because I want to make a point. If this is your upper trapezius here, and that shortens, we all know the trapezius, the scapulas will go up. If this gets shorter, these guys have to go up, right? That's how you do this. I don't know. Because really, that line that I just drew up here, this line, if it gets shorter, if it actually contracts and gets shorter, these guys have to raise up. Or tear your trapezius right off your body. I prefer just elevating my scapula. But, okay? Do we understand that? Yes? Maybe? Okay. But if I don't ask the client to do it, that's the client contracting. If I ask the client to contract, what happens, by the way, just so you guys can compare. Wow. If I have similar clients, if I have similar clients, and I ask the client to raise their scapula, quite literally, this muscle gets shorter and thicker usually. Gets shorter and thicker because it's crawling over itself microscopically. And so what you get, just do this right now, touch this. Like you're not going to get through that very well. So now we've got a thicker trapezius and it's contracted. We don't want that. But if I come along and shove these up, if I shove up this, which just means I elevate that, this client has all of this trapezius here loose. All of that is loose. And so honestly, I know it doesn't look quite like this, but they've honestly got kind of like a loose wire there, a loose rope. So if I lift their scapula up, not them, they've got all this loose stuff and we can go in there. And upward rotation works too. Those are really good. And now I don't have to fight the trapezius, which might actually be stopping me to get to the supraspinatus. Does that make sense? Kinda, sorta? Okay, good, good. We're just introducing that kind of thinking, by the way. It's okay if it's not like, but this is some of the reasons we care about kinesiology. If you don't know what the trapezius does and where it exists and what's underneath it, there's no point in moving this stuff around. And some of this stuff is really tricky to get to. So you now have kind of an advanced way to get to the trapezius. I mean, sorry, to the supraspinatus, if you need to. If you need to. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Good stuff. All right, let's look at a quick slideshow, although I think we've pretty much just covered everything. But let's look at this so that we can see if I missed anything book-wise, to be very honest with you. Okay, you should see, again, a guy with no skin on his body climbing a mountain. Very disturbing. Mr. Bligen, did you have something to say? You had your hand up. No, just from old hand raising, huh? Okay. Okay. So, Miss McDowell, by the way, this is a really good picture. This is origins of the kind of the posterior rotator cuff muscles, and you will see that the origin for the Teres Minor is very different from the origin of the Infraspinatus, but the minute we put muscles over them, it all just becomes one big thing. That's what we're going to see. So here's the Supraspinatus. This is a great picture of it. It disappears there for a second because it's running under the acromion process. It really comes out under the acromion process, then peeks its head back out again and grabs on the side of the shoulder. You can actually wiggle your thumb underneath the acromion process into the glenohumeral joint. It's fun. You can actually pry your thumb in there to actually open up space in the glenohumeral joint. Let's say if you thought it was too compacted. And that was part of the problem with clicking. Because here's the really weird thing. Most people react to pain by tensing up. So when my supraspinatus is here and it's rubbing on itself under my acromion process, and that causes me pain, I oftentimes tense up my supraspinatus, which draws my head of my humerus in closer. This is a very significant gap. Now when I use my shoulder, it grinds, which causes more pain, which causes me to get it tighter. But now it's so tight and it hurts so much I don't move it at all, so I get frozen shoulder. The point is the pain creates what we call a pain cycle. Pain cycles usually in massage mean that the pain is causing me to tense up and me tensing up is causing more pain. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? So one of the things I want to do is just get my thumb in here and start opening up this person's shoulder so that there's some movement here and the shoulder can kind of move around and, I don't know, blood can get in there, things like that. And this area can start to calm down and I can create space again in this joint again for them so that this area can heal. Because what happens is you want your joints kind of loose. Not ridiculously loose, I don't want my shoulder to fall off, but I also don't want them really tight. I actually don't want bone-on-bone action anywhere. So I want a little bit of play in there. That's one of the things we can play with. And you could do that by loosening up all the rotator cuff muscles, because that would help loosen up the rotator cuff muscle socket, the glenohumeral joint. And you would know now what muscles to rub. You'd be like, okay, well, I can actually find these. I can find the spine of the scapula. I can rub underneath that. I can elevate the shoulder, and I can get into the supraspinatus, and I can reach into a person's axillary region, even kind of rub the subscapularis and get this all loosened up, and then this will be looser for them, and then the area will start to heal. It's kind of cool. Yeah. Watch a baseball game and see how long you go before somebody mentions a rotator cuff problem. Watch actually any type of sports game. See how long before they mention knees or shoulders. It's almost always rotator cuff when it's shoulders. So this is important stuff. Not just to athletes, but to daily people, but daily people and athletes tend to kind of blend together. Yeah. Cool, cool, cool. Okay, so the supraspinatus pulls out from the side. If I were to pull out from my side, I would abduct, right? Of course it stabilizes. They're going to say that on all these. And that's true, but I just think it's ridiculous. Anyway, stabilizes. Then the infraspinatus is back behind me. So when it pulls, it actually rotates me out laterally. Boom. Yep. They also say it adducts because when my arm is out like this, it can pull it back in. Sure, we can see that. And there's the Teres Minor. Same thing as the infraspinatus, by the way. Same thing, essentially going to the same place. Not exactly, but essentially the same place. Infraspinatus, teres minor. Teres minor, infraspinatus. I say teres minor, you say infraspinatus. You say infraspinatus, I say teres minor. Okay. And then subscapularis. Beautiful subscapularis. We're looking at the front of a body now. In order to see this picture here, they have removed all the ribs. I mean, they removed a lot, but I just want to let you know. Like, you'd have to remove all this to see the front of my scapula, right? Yeah. Subscapularis. That one grabs in front, so it actually medially rotates and stabilizes the whole darn thing. And all of this creates this beautiful, beautiful network around your shoulder to all hold it in place. And I wish we had I just want to see if I had a picture of all these together. Yeah, I do not. Hold on, everybody. Just want to see if I had a... No, I don't. Never mind. Sorry. I thought I might have a picture of them all together. So, just some little highlights, 2 things to think about when you're doing homework and such tonight. Supraspinatus, it's on top, right? So it's found underneath the trapezius. I already told you we always associate the infraspinatus with the teres minor. They are synergists. What's a synergist? Anyone tell me that? Synergist?
Working together.
Yeah. In synergy. Yeah. Synergists. We're all synergists. Yeah. We're working together. Yeah. By the way, your book mentions this is a multi-pennate muscle. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just it's not a very useful thing for us. But multi-pennate muscles just mean the fibers fan out. The infraspinatus, the fibers fan out. It's not really a big deal in this case. That's how they cover the whole infraspinatus fossa. That's about it. That's about it. We haven't really. Never mind. I was going to tell you some stuff about the Serratus Anterior and things like that, but we haven't learned enough yet. So, all these are palpatable, though. They can all be palpated. That means you can touch them all essentially through the skin. Sometimes you have to, telegraph through the trapezius or whatever, but they can be truly found and felt. And now that you know the actions of the arm, when you're on one, you can actually move it around to kind of feel some of the actions of that muscle. You'll actually feel it pulling underneath your fingers, which is also a very common massage therapist technique. We call it pin and stretch. You guys heard of this yet? No. Pin and stretch is a really clever technique that we do in massage where I pin a muscle down and then stretch it. And it may not seem like such a big deal, but it lets me access things I couldn't get. Like this supraspinatus, there's not a lot of room in there. So when I'm in there, I can pin it down and pull down the arm. And what I'm doing is actually pulling the muscle underneath my hand. That's what's cool about pin and stretch. I'm actually not just holding this spot. What happens is my bicep is now running underneath my finger. And so I'm pinning it and stretching it. It's actually rubbing more of the muscle than just this one spot. And we use pin and stretch a lot in massage therapy. A lot. Not usually for the bicep. Well, sometimes for the bicep even. But for pecs and things like that. We really love it for those type of things. Yeah. And we'll explain that more when we get to pecs. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I do have some notes here I want you guys to think about, but you kind of answer them today. So when you hear shorten in the book, think contract, because that's what's happening. When you hear lengthen, think stretch, because that's what's happening. We are stretching a muscle. We are lengthening it. Cool? And what we learned kind of today is if we do the action for somebody, if I elevate their shoulder, that leaves a muscle loose. If you do the action for the client, it leaves the muscle loose. If they do the action, it shortens it and contracts it. And there are times I want your muscle loose, so I can get through it usually to a deeper muscle. Because people that rub backs, by the way, just rub backs. You guys are dealing now in three-dimensional levels, right? And so we care about getting down into places that people aren't aware of there. That's the concept. Okay.